don't think I'm going to need these, but you never know. So my name is Jeff Boller. I grew up in Elwood City, and I went to Lincoln in the late 1980s. When Felicia asked me if I wanted to do something a little extra for tonight's show, originally I said no. Because, like many of you, I'm still sad over Cindy Pertile's passing. I didn't want to do anything that would pile on the sadness. But I thought about it for a little bit, and I realized, instead I could do something that would celebrate a certain part of Cindy's personality, a certain skill that she had. Cindy had the uncanny knack for seeing the potential in people. Because when she saw the potential in people, she would believe in them. And when she would believe in them, amazing things would happen. Anyone who has spent an extended amount of time around Cindy probably has what I call a Cindy story. A Cindy story is basically the story of how Cindy either subtly or dramatically altered the course of your life for the better. And tonight I'd like to share with you my Cindy story. So for as long as I can remember, there's three things I've always been really interested in. And those three things are film, computers, and music. And girls. But we're not going to be talking about that tonight. In second grade, I made my first animated film. It was with a bunch of sheets of paper and a Super 8 film camera. In fourth grade, I got my first home computer. And I still get this excited when I get packages from Amazon. In sixth grade, I acquired a cassette 4-track and a Casio keyboard, on which I would go on to write literally hundreds of terrible songs. Now, my parents were always very supportive of my three interests of film, music, and computers, but I think they felt that I needed to broaden my horizons a bit, because they would say things to me like, you really ought to get interested in sports, because one day you're going to be out there in the work world, and you're going to need to talk to your coworkers, and the way you talk to your coworkers is through sports. And I thought, okay, that's fair enough. I'm going to try to get interested in sports. So I tried to get interested in sports, and it didn't go very well. I quickly realized anything involving hand-eye coordination that wasn't a video game was somehow just beyond me. And I really did do that at a basketball game. So, okay, I thought maybe I'm not any good at playing sports. Maybe I could get really good at watching sports. So I tried doing that, and that didn't work out too well either, because for whatever reason, my brain was just not wired for sports. My brain was wired for three things: film, computers, and music. So in eighth grade, I came home from school one day, and I happened to mention to my parents that the high school was having auditions for the musical Annie. And my parents, they never forced me to do anything, but this was the one thing in my life that they did force me to do. My parents forced me to audition for Annie. Not the character Annie, of course, but the musical Annie. And I didn't want to audition, but I'm so glad that I did, because that's how I first met Cindy. I made it into the show's chorus and was even given a couple lines of dialogue. And being on stage, it was fun, but what really appealed to me was what happened behind the scenes. I loved the camaraderie and the friendships that developed from being part of the show. And I also got to see firsthand how Cindy would take these kids who usually didn't have any background in singing or acting, and she would transform them into something amazing. Because somehow Cindy was able to see the potential in people, and when she saw that potential, she would believe in them. She would believe that they could do it. And the people she believed in worked really hard to try to fulfill those expectations that Cindy had of them. And as a result, they ended up accomplishing more than they originally thought they could. And I saw this pattern over and over and over again. The next year, I was in a chorus line. Now, Cindy was a master at putting together a family-friendly, audience-pleasing show that would pack the house, but a chorus line, it was different. It was a serious show for adults. And we trimmed back a little bit of what was in the original Broadway version, but we didn't hold back much. It was a daring and edgy choice for a high school musical, especially in 1988. But somehow we got away with it, and I was happy to be a co-conspirator, no matter how slight. Cindy's production of a chorus line is the one that taught me a lot about artistic integrity, because she compromised almost nothing, and she was able to pull amazing performances out of the cast. Like, for example, there was one cast member who had no prior experience in acting, and yet he was able to conjure up real tears on stage every night. And it was amazing. It was amazing work that he did. And the reason why he was able to do it was because Cindy believed in him. I mean, Cindy believed in all of us, and that's how she was able to make the impossible possible. In 10th grade, I was Rolf in The Sound of Music. This was my last musical at Lincoln because my family had decided that at the end of the school year, we were going to be moving away from Elwood. But it was another wonderful production, and it was a lot of fun. So, all throughout the time I was in these Lincoln musicals, I was writing and recording songs with my cassette 4-track and Casio keyboard. And I would share some of these terrible songs with Cindy and Felicia. Cindy and Felicia, God bless them. They were always very supportive of my songwriting. They were always very encouraging with their comments. They were never mean or snarky about it because, I mean, given the content of some of these songs and given the amateurishness of some of these songs, I'm sure there were times when they had to stifle their laughter a bit. I know I have to stifle my laughter when I think about some of these songs today. But animator Chuck Jones, when he was starting out in his career, he had an art teacher who told him that every beginning artist has 1,000 bad drawings inside of him, and the only way to get beyond that stage is just to draw them out. And I think the same holds true for a beginning songwriter who's trying to learn songwriting. Certainly was true for me. Near the end of the school year, before I was about to move away from Elwood, Cindy asked if I would perform one of the songs that I had recorded in my basement at the spring choral concert. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it, but I did it. And the audience response was overwhelming. Because Cindy believed in me, this was the first time that I felt that I had truly connected with an audience. Because my songwriting at the time, it was kind of like a stopped clock that was right maybe twice a day. But what this experience did is it gave me the confidence that even if the next thing I wrote completely missed the mark, at least I wrote one thing that an audience really liked. And that was nearly 30 years ago to the day on the stage. And that was the last time I was on the stage. So, what's happened since then? Well, sometimes I come back to Lincoln to see the musicals, and I'm always super impressed. I have seen shows here that have topped some of the things I've seen in downtown Pittsburgh by professional companies. Felicia has built something outstanding on top of the tradition that Cindy started of making the impossible possible. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's Felicia's job description, make the impossible possible. But in any case, the Lincoln High Choral Department is, in my view, one of the best things about Elwood City. And I think it's really one of the crown jewels of Western PA. And I'm so proud to have been associated with it. Thank you. Yeah. As far as myself, as for somebody whose brain has always revolved around film, computers, and music, I ended up doing all three things, separately and then together in a funny sort of way. After a brief stint as an audio engineer and then as a video editor, I finally found my groove as a software engineer. And that's what I've been for the last 20 years. Software engineering is the perfect career if you have no idea what's going on with professional sports. For 17 of the last 20 years, I continued to write songs in my basement, but instead of using a Casio keyboard and a cassette 4-track, I ended up acquiring a whole band's worth of instruments and learned how to play them. And I released several albums under the name of The Simple Carnival. The Simple Carnival got great reviews from critics, and it developed a cult following of sorts, especially in Japan. And about 9 years ago, I got the bug to do more filmmaking and animation. And I started making 3D animated music videos for the Simple Carnival songs. Now, I no longer record music as the Simple Carnival, but I continue to make these 3D animated music videos. And they're done largely inside the computer, so they really combine all three things I love, film, computers, and music, all under one roof. So over time, one thing has led to another, and now my music videos are regularly screened at film festivals around the world. I've been lucky enough to have won some awards, and I get the occasional mention in various trade publications. But don't let me give you the wrong impression. I'm a household name only in my own house. Still, I love having an excuse to make films and to see my work connect with an audience, just like how I saw my song connect with an audience here 30 years ago. So, a little while ago, I was asked to give a presentation at a conference about how I produce and direct my animated music videos. And I was working on the video portion of it, where I was going to be live narrating over top of the video, much like what you just saw. And that's when I got the email that Cindy had passed away. And it hit me hard. It hit me really hard, because I realized that everything that I was doing at that moment, from putting together a presentation, basically an entertaining show for an audience, about directing music videos from songs that I had written and recorded and performed. All those things happened because way back when, Cindy saw some glimmer of potential and she believed in me. And that's my Cindy story. My Cindy story, it is not unique, and it is definitely not the only one out there. I would imagine there are hundreds, if not over 1,000 Cindy stories about how she came into our lives and made things better than we originally imagined they could be. Joseph Campbell was a mythology scholar who would tell his students that the secret to being happy in life is to, quote, follow your bliss. Meaning, find what it is that you really enjoy doing and follow it. Follow it deeply. Follow it to its logical conclusion. Because if you're out there following your bliss, you're going to be on a track of sorts where you're going to meet other people who are also following their bliss. And those people will open doors for you that would have never opened otherwise. I never heard Cindy use the phrase, follow your bliss. But I do believe that is how she lived her life. And I do believe that, whether directly or indirectly, Cindy encouraged her students to also follow their bliss. And I will always be grateful that she did. Thank you.